Well, this is something that we do at Alabama One on a regular basis. We have what's called words of encouragement, and we thought it'd be a great idea to share this on our Bridge Builders platform while we speak to our organization, but also speak to you as leaders, as individuals, about how important it is that you give your team words of encouragement. And today we're going to talk about a topic called pushing through. Bill Wells, our CEO, Jason Halperin, our VP of Consumer Lending, is going to be joining me in this conversation. And we really want to encourage you, stay tuned for all of it because we think we have some great points here that will help you. Pushing through, Bill, we've talked about it. This COVID-19 world is really crazy. When you hear the term pushing through, or when you think about pushing through, what does that mean to you as a leader?
Well, it's staying focused on your goals that you have. You know, we did not know how long COVID would last. And we were an essential business, so we knew we had to stay open some form, some fashion. And there was a point where I think there was just a little bit of uncertainty what our operations would look like. I know that, in fact, when we had a first team member that came down with COVID who ended up being very well, we really didn't know how to react. Jason and our Audrey with our HR area went out, and we were just kind of playing it as we went with it. And we got, unfortunately, a little bit better with some experience. But then there hit probably about the summertime, and it just had the feeling that this was going to linger, going to last. And that's when you really have to kind of hunker down and just say, I'm going to push through to my goals. I've got to look beyond that. I've got to move forward. And so you and I started having that conversation about where we were as a team. And sometimes you get tired.
Yes.
You can get unfocused, or you can get distracted. And we just needed to, as a team, start talking about getting to that other side. Keep your head down, stay focused on your goals, keep doing what you're doing. And that's kind of how we came up with the term push through.
Jason, when you hear that term push through, pushing through, what does it mean to you?
I think really focus is probably the best word, and I think our role as leaders when we're pushing through is really just trying to identify those opportunities that are going to make the team better, and maybe switching something where they're seeing a negative, trying to show them a positive, trying to just again keep them focused on the task at hand, but try to understand what they're going through, try to create an environment where if they're frustrated, when they're tired, when they got things going on, try to flip that around and try to make it as positive as possible for them.
Yeah, and I think one of the things is that we also did a great job as an organization of recognizing that our team members were going through,
Yes.
you know, and that it was real at different levels, but that we really did have to be there to encourage our team. Well, saying that, one of the things I've learned over time when I want to try to get a point home, a lot of times I'll try to spell out something or pick some words. So the word push, we're going to spend the rest of our time just picking a couple words with each letter to kind of talk through. And Jason, I'll let you go first. When I think of P in the term of pushing through, there's a couple of words that jump out. Of course, as a pastor, you know, that they say push, pray until something happens. You know, that's kind of the pastor thing. But from a leadership organization standpoint, two words kind of jump out: patience and perseverance.
Right. So again, two great words, and I probably didn't communicate it very well, but I think patience is critical when you're pushing through. So many of the speakers today during Bridge Builders talked about really getting to know your team members or getting to know your members, whatever the issue is, and having patience with them, understanding what their issues are, understanding what they're going through. Again, trying to flip a negative into a positive. Really just being there and being patient, I think, is critical in pushing through situations. And obviously this team, we've talked about perseverance since the very beginning. I think it was Audrey, actually. I think that was one of her first words. And persevering, just working your way through things, understanding what's going on, trying, again, like a lot of people talked about today, putting yourself in other people's shoes, trying to push through is one of the most important things you're going to be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and again, it's I'll say even a P is pace. And that's what I was really concerned about pacing, because I'll push, sometimes I'll push too hard. But really, when I sat down with Audrey, head of HR, I said, you're really the heart of the institution. And I said, I may push, but you're there to listen. You're there to understand. You're the sounding board. And when I need to back off, she would be the conduit to come back to me and say, okay, all right, but now let's kind of rethink. And so, when you're pushing through, you have to have an understanding of where your team is. Jason said, when you talk about taking a negative into a positive, but you have to understand, and what we heard today at Bridge Builders was listen and understand and have empathy as you're going through it. Still understanding we have goals, we have objectives, and what I think we did as an institution is we did some of our highest production numbers during this time because we were pacing ourselves just right. We were pushing through. We didn't get distracted. So it's kind of, you have to understand where your team is and be in tune with your team.
You must be reading my notes because you is for understanding, right? Right. And let's talk a little bit about understanding, because I think understanding sometimes is not very well understood by others. Most of us don't use the two, we use the one. And what I mean is we seek to make everybody else understand versus understanding. How important is, since Bill kind of laid the foundation for understanding, Jason, how important is it that we see it from the other person's perspective if we're really going to understand?
Sure. Again, during Bridge Builders, several folks talked about listening, right? Listening being a critical skill. When times are tougher, we've found that the more you listen, whether it's listening to your members or customers, or whether it's listening to our team members, being patient, going back to that before, listening, understanding what their needs are, and then, as Bill says, taking whatever strategy, whatever goal we're trying to meet, but trying to look at it from their point of view, trying to understand the things that the team members or the members are going through, and then create those goals, create our goals or the way we're going to push through our plans based on understanding the needs of the individual, whoever our target is something that I think this team has done real well, and it's just very important when you're trying to accomplish goals in a difficult time.
Would you like to speak to understanding a little?
Well, I mean, I think it's what we've done is sometimes we, especially me, act. I was kind of the way I've been in the financial services industry is issue, act, respond. And what I have learned is sometimes people just want to be listened to. And I think that gets in a lot of things that happen in our country even today is people just want to be heard. And so you have to have empathy, as we talked about. And with empathy comes in understanding. And then it may even modify a little bit of your approach where you had an initial plan of action. I think where understanding, empathy comes in, kind of helps you work through a tough situation.
We talked about pushing through. If you're just not joining us, we're talking about pushing through, patience, perseverance, pace, understanding. You mentioned the word empathy. And I think sometimes as leaders, this next letter we sometimes lose as leaders. And that is that we serve people. In the tough times, how important, Bill, is that word serve or servant leader versus just leading?
Well, it's your whole approach. And, it's okay to have goals, have objectives, but it's what we talked about even in Bridge Builders, team building. Mm-hmm. Servant leader is always building a team and what's most important to that team, and you can have shared goals and objectives and outcomes. And that's what you really have to do is understand, as we talked about earlier, and that becomes the one where you really serve. And so one thing I mentioned earlier, and I don't talk much around our team, is my job is to remove barriers. Mm-hmm. And when you do that, then you let people kind of go at their pace, they understand, and they still really develop as they go through a very tough and some very tough times.
I'll probably say the same thing as Bill, maybe a little differently. I kind of see my role as a servant leader is making sure that we're putting our team members in that best position to succeed.
Yes.
It's especially important in difficult times, but it's important any time for success. We relate things at our organization back to sports a lot. And when you've got limited resources, when you've got limited team members, we were talking about diversity earlier, and if you've got 3 great quarterbacks but no offensive linemen, you're not going to be able to be successful. I think serving, and it gets back to understanding, is a lot about understanding who your team members are, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, creating an environment where they can work on their weaknesses, but creating an environment where they're going to really be able to compound their successes. And the only way you do that is by serving them, is by seeing what they need, finding out what they need, finding out what you can do to make them the most successful, and then putting them in those situations.
Yeah, the word pushing through kind of reminds me of scripture where Apostle Paul is talking about how he presses on, but he's also pulling, he's straining. And I always kind of used to get confused about that, but in one sense, as a leader, you have to be the one up front leading and pulling, because wherever you are, the people are going to be behind you. So you kind of have to pull them, but then at the same time, you have to jump out of that role and get behind them, and sometimes give them a little bit of a push. And to me, the last word that we want to talk about, if the visionary or the leader don't have this, then all these other things really don't matter. And if they don't have it and can't instill it in their team members, then it makes it really hard to push through. And that's the word hope.
Right.
Either one of you want to?
Well, it's hope is vision. Hope is going through a tough situation with a positive attitude. Hope is seeing where the other side, being from a risk guy, they always talked about the light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
We were going through the Great Recession. We'd say, well, is that the light at the end of the tunnel, or is that the train coming at you? and it really is how you perceive it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what we've done a very good job at our institution is here's where we're going. We are sticking to our mission. This is what we believe in. We think it's the right way to go. And hope to me is encouragement. And it's just how you lead by example. We heard that today at Bridge Builders. I think that's what we do is we're not asking our team members to do anything that we wouldn't do ourselves.
I mean, Bill said it all. It gets back again to finding out what they're going through. Sometimes when times get tough, any of us tend to focus on that negative. I think Tim Alexander did a great job of talking about that. But if you focus on the negative, the more negative thoughts you have, the more those negative thoughts are going to compound. Well, it's the opposite. It's staying positive. It's creating that vision, just like Bill said. It's reinforcing that vision. And I think to create hope, it's also about being consistent. Mm-hmm. I think if our team sees a lot of ups and downs, or our members see a lot of ups and downs, that can be discouraging. The opposite is if you're constantly positive, if you're constantly talking about what that vision is, constantly communicating that hope, hopefully it will inspire your team and inspire your members.
Yeah, and to me, I always think about the term hope, and I look at individuals, and I tell people all the time, I say, you can take the richest man in the world and rob him of hope, and he'll kill himself. You can take the kid who has the worst upbringing, nothing going right, and somehow instill hope in him, and he'll go fight for his future. And the thing about hope is we don't know when it's going to expire, so we have to do it every day. And I think Tim even talked about that in his thing. If I knew that I was going to walk at 9:15 and it's 9:12, and I give up at 9:12, well, I give up because I've lost hope that 9:15 is coming. So just real quick, pushing through requires patience, perseverance, and pace. There may be some other words out there, but those three we hit on. It requires understanding. It requires a servant's heart, a servant leadership, and then we also are required to instill hope in our leaders. Would either one of you like to share any closing thoughts or comments?
Well, for us as an institution, the words of encouragement is part of what we've talked about pushing through. You know, that conversation. How do we motivate a team when they're going through because they have childcare issues? they have health care issues. It may be them personally, or it may be their family or extended family or friends. And we just always looking to how do we always keep our team members understanding and what's their best interest. And we put their interest, and we can work from our business side, we can work those two together.
Kind of what Bishop talked about, people, productivity, and priority. You have those three.
Right.
You have a game plan for success for pushing through. Any closing thoughts, Jason?
No, I mean, I think as listening to both of you guys talk, listening to this whole conference today, it's really about people. Every topic we've talked about is about people and about taking care of people. Yes. And treating people the right way. And pushing through almost sounds to me a little negative, and it's really not negative. Pushing through is how can we work together? How can we be a team? How can we try to accomplish our goals together? So maybe it gets back to the very first point I was trying to make is if we can turn negative thoughts into positives, if we can focus our attention on the good things, negative things are going to happen. They're always going to happen. But if we can motivate our team, if we can motivate each other, if we can work together, we'll be able to push through.
Well, the term push itself insinuates that there's an obstacle or something or hindrance that's holding you back. But know this, that you have within you the ability to push through. On behalf of Alabama One Credit Union, we're so excited to bring you this word of encouragement. And also remember, go back out to alabamaone.org/bridge builders and find all the great content from our Bridge Builders Conference.